Welcome back to Stuff About Money They Didn't Teach You in School. I'm Xavier Angel, certified financial planner, and today we're going to be discussing how long-term care is eventually going to touch every family, whether it's sudden due to a slip or fall, or maybe gradual, which is based off of dementia progression. Whatever it may be, most families always or almost always feel unprepared for it. And so today, as our guest, we have Shannon Ory, who's an aging care consultant, a senior placement specialist, and owner of Avila Senior Advisors. And as an expert here with us today, Shannon's going to be having a conversation with us. What are 6 things that everyone should know about caring for aging parents? So Shannon, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me, Xavier. This is
thank you for coming on board. So
sure.
this is a great topic, right? We have these conversations come up often, and so today is really why I wanted to get you on here to talk about what are some things that people need to know about caring for their aging parents. So before we get started, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I was born and raised in the greater New Orleans area, and it's interesting how I got into this. There's really no clear method to the madness, but I just always loved being around older adults. 80 and up were my crew, as I called it. And after I graduated from Mount Carmel in New Orleans, I moved to Northern Virginia and attended George Mason University and got my degree in health administration with a specific concentration in senior housing, and started working in that industry my freshman year. I would just take any opportunities I could at retirement communities in kind of working with the administration there. I spent a summer in Elkhart, Indiana, working with Hubbard Hill Retirement Community as they were building a state-of-the-art memory care community. And that really launched my interest in memory care and accompanying families as they navigate aging. I came face to face with a lot of families who were just overwhelmed with how to care for their aging parents, and thus became the vision of Avila was, how can I be close to families as they're navigating this? So I started working in other areas of the industry, trying to get as much knowledge as I could in Evansville, Indiana, with the Southwest Indiana Area Agency on Aging. I did Christian mission work for a few years, working with the homebound and the sick. So I really was using my knowledge firsthand. I came back to New Orleans and helped manage a sitter agency, and really got to know that part of the industry too, was home care. And so I've got the assisted living background, I've got the memory background, and then the sitter as well, and then the just face-to-face with families. So lots of areas within the senior care field that I've worked with.
So you're bringing a wealth of knowledge to the conversation today, and from a different perspective, from the side that I sit on, and I'm having a conversation with families and planning. So before we jump into it, we typically ask our guests, what is one thing about money that they would have known? And so I want to pose that question to you. What is one thing about money you wish you would have known 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think I said to you was compounding interest. I actually had my nephew and his friend over last night. They stopped by and we were talking about money. They're freshmen in college. And I said, compounding interest. If you just invest a little now, it'll really pay off. So
Absolutely.
I wish I would have known that at 18.
So what was their response? Did they understand what that was? Did they look at you like you were crazy? What was the response that they gave to you?
Yeah, I actually was surprised that they knew what it was. I don't think I knew what it was until I started dating my now husband, and he did a lot of financial education with me. And my nephew said his dad had sat down with him at 15 and explained compounding interest, and they started putting money aside for that.
Wow.
So I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, I am as well.
Yeah.
And part of what Eric and I attempt to do here is, we're it's a habit. Our children watch us, and they pick up the things that we do. So if they see us saving, if they see us, investing our money and putting money away, eventually they're going to do it. And we have to have those
Right.
conversations with them early and often. So
Right.
hats off to them for doing that. And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
well, let's jump in. And I think we'll start with one of the most important questions, and things that I think everyone should understand is that care needs change overnight, right? So my mother may be doing well today, but tomorrow, if she slips and fall and she's hospitalized,
Mhm.
care now changes. Everything about this
Right.
situation changes. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about is how often it could change. So let's talk about what should families begin thinking about or doing now, in the event that a parent has an accident. They slip, they fall, and they're told that they cannot live at home by themselves.
Hmm. Yeah. I actually had a client call a few weeks ago with this exact scenario, husband and wife. The husband actually has poorer health, but the wife changed some medications and had a side effect and fell, hit her head, and ended up hospitalized. And she was overall very healthy prior to this. And it has really thrown them for a loop. I think that's that's actually there's a lot of people who are really healthy older adults and they're living independently. And I think it's really great to have that conversation with them of if there's a crisis such as
Mhm.
this, God willing, that doesn't ever happen. But if it does, what would you like to do? So this
Right.
couple, the wife was hospitalized and then went to rehab for a little bit and got some physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then was discharged home, but their home was not set up to accommodate her. So that that's something that, when that happens, you got to move so quickly to get it
Right.
set up. And not just the space itself wasn't set up. They didn't have sitters, they didn't have names of sitters, they didn't have um, information of who to contact if this happens. So I think it's really worthwhile to, like you said, just get your team in place now, get the
Hmm.
names in place now for people who you want to have as resources. And then when the time comes, you know who your team is, who you can rely on.
Hmm.
So I think going back to your question, Xavier, correct me if this is what you were
Yeah.
asking, but how do you determine if mom can go home? Is that what you were
What's
asking?
more, what does that conversation look like? And I think
Yeah.
often, when we're thinking about long-term care for our parents or aging parents, right? We think older. We think 80s. We think early 90s, and that's kind of what early in my career. Those are some of the things that I thought about. But it could
Right.
actually happen to those that are younger, right?
Mhm.
I'm dealing with a young male. He's in his late 50s right now, and because
Wow.
of cancer, it
Wow.
progressed as fast as it did. Well, now we're sitting, or his family is sitting there, and they're trying to figure out what do we do, right?
Mm.
Because they know
Yeah.
he can't stay home.
Right.
So where does that, because they're past the planning stage. So
Mhm.
I guess the focus now becomes where should they begin? Where should they start having that conversation?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to throw this out there, right? Because now these crisis based decisions, right? They're the most expensive, the expensive decisions that you're going to make, especially
Right.
when it comes to long term care, because
Right.
we're under pressure and we
Mhm.
have minimal options. So now we're rushing to find
Mhm.
out what do we do.
Mhm.
So where should that start? What are some of the questions that families should start asking?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think well, in a first conversation with your let's say they're your parents, your aging parents, for example, there's a lot of family dynamics there, different ways that people respond to this topic.
Hmm.
My parents were pretty practically minded. They didn't mind talking about this, but I have some clients who it's very sensitive for them. Um, I think a way to approach it first as a calm to make it a calm environment is, "Mom, I wanna help you do what you want. I want to
Right.
figure out how to help you do what you want.
Hmm.
And I'd like to get a better idea of your finances, and I have some questions regarding your finances to determine what we could do in the case of a crisis. And I'd like to know what kind of environment you picture as you age. And ideally, you would, get to stay at home as long as possible. But if there was a crisis, I still want to help you do what you want. So what would that look like? But
Right.
I think children often, and I am guilty of this too, we want to come in and say, this is what you need. And that doesn't
Yes.
really help it go well in my experience, even with my own parents.
Right.
So,
And I think when you come in from that standpoint, you say, this is what's going to happen. Then you
right,
get the pushback from the parents rather than figuring out what is it that you want. Right.
right,
And
totally.
I've heard, I've been a part of some of those conversations, and I'm sitting
Hmm.
there and I'm having to pull the spouse back and say, well, hold on,
Right,
let's not go there. Let's have a
right,
couple other questions that are there. So
right,
that main point is you've got to sit down. You have to have that. You have to begin the conversation. So if we're at the point now and the doctors walk in, they tell me that mom or dad or whomever it may be, someone's going to need to stay with them, right? What is the first step? What should we do at that point? What is the first step as a loved one, as a family, as a or as a son or daughter?
right.
What's the first step we need to take?
Yeah. You're describing if they can go home and
They
they
can
need
go
someone
home,
to come be with them.
correct, but they cannot be
Yeah.
home alone. They need
Right.
they need to stay somewhere.
Right. Well, first, I'll say, well, that would be a sitter, someone who's there just to be with them in their home. Now, that's not someone who does any medical, and interrupt me, Xavier, at any
Hmm.
point. This isn't
Right.
you're looking for, but a sitter is there to help you with bathing, with dressing, with your hygiene, with shaving, brushing your teeth, with meal preparation. If the person needs help with feeding, they can help with that. Um, Transportation in and out of a chair, transfers, in and out of the tub. So they can help with all of that. They can't do
Okay.
medical things. So that's a confusing thing for people often. Is like, well, but they're not a nurse. No, they're a
Right.
sitter, but they can do a lot. But if the person is able to go home and needs things like that, a sitter is a good fit. Now,
Okay.
how do you find a sitter, especially in a time of crisis? There's two options there. There are private independent sitters and there are sitter agencies. Now, a sitter agency would be like your visiting angels, home instead. Now, they often charge more than a private independent sitter because they have overhead and things like that. But you can move quickly with a
Hmm.
sitter agency.
Okay.
Now, one thing I recommend to people now, sitter agencies might punish me for this, but private independent sitters are the my preference personally.
Okay. Okay.
They're a little more reliable
Hmm.
because their personal reputation's on the line. They're usually more affordable per
Okay.
hour. But you need to start working on that ahead of time. Get some names of private sitters in your area through church or through your friends who've had sitters. In New Orleans, we have a lot of private sitters amongst our small community, and getting those names is really helpful ahead of time.
Okay.
So that's a recommendation. And then people, excuse me, Xavier, if you're
Yeah.
getting discharged from the hospital, oftentimes you can get home health as well,
Okay.
in addition to your sitter. And home health will help provide some therapies, ongoing therapies. This is covered by Medicare as well. Home
Okay.
health is covered by Medicare. And that's a good thing to have at home in addition to the sitters, but home health will not provide sitters. And that's where people
Gotcha.
get confused. It's home health is very different than home care. Why do they
Okay.
have to pick similar names? I don't know.
So
But
we're actually going to get into the terminology in a little
yeah.
bit because I
Yeah.
that is a
Ugh.
confusing area as well.
Right. Right.
Um, Now, before we move on, I want
Yeah.
you to clarify one term for me,
Yeah.
and because I've thrown it out a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess on my side with
Mhm.
working on the financial services side and dealing with insurance companies,
Mhm.
my terminology for long-term care is different from what you use.
Right.
And
Right.
so from my standpoint, when I think long-term care, I'm thinking more of a long-term care insurance. So a policy that's going to pay out a daily benefit to help take care of you. So that's what I understood it. And then when we had this
Mhm.
conversation, you
Right.
clarified it for me. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit more about what does long-term care mean from your side of the business?
Yeah. Well, we throw out the term long-term care when we're saying it, it actually can mean a few things in our world too, but long-term care kind of covers a variety of services. But long-term care is usually uh, used for nursing homes, I would say.
Okay.
Um, if you need long-term care,
Hmm.
that's what they're referring to.
Okay.
The terminology within our industry does change regularly, which is too
Hmm.
bad for the lay population.
Right.
But it is helpful when financial advisors and things specify long-term care insurance,
Hmm.
and especially with people in my field.
Right.
So yeah.
So when
Mm.
we use that term here today, then we're
Mhm.
not talking about the insurance side. We're
Right,
talking more about needing care or being in a facility,
right,
correct?
right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the next big thing that, and we talked a little bit about this as well. We talked
Mhm.
about how dementia is more of a journey. It's
Mhm.
not something it's not a moment, right?
Right.
So when dementia starts to set in, how do
Mhm.
we have that conversation and how do we decide between staying home versus moving, whether it's moving in with you or moving into a facility? How do you address it or how do you recommend addressing it between the family and the parents?
Yeah. Each situation is very nuanced. Also, ability to pay can change the direction of this. So, I'll give an example of clients. I have one client who they can pay
Hmm.
24/7 sitters to come be with their mom who has dementia. Now that's very costly. That's $25 an hour,
Yeah.
24/7,
Okay.
7 days a week. That's very expensive. But the mom isn't aggressive. She doesn't leave the house ever. So she's able to stay in her house with someone there monitoring her and helping her with her needs. So that's someone who can stay at home. Someone who may be a better fit for a memory care community wanders, leaves the house at different times of the day or night. Um, they may exhibit aggressive behaviors, or um, maybe they're really becoming withdrawn and need socialization. I think isolation's a big part that enhances people's memory impairments. So
Okay.
some families think mom's getting really isolated with her dementia living at home. We think she needs more people to be around. And I've seen people come back and
Oh,
just
okay.
improve drastically once they live with other people. So that's a reason people move forward with a memory care community as
Okay.
well.
And you
So
you said something there that stuck with me.
mhm.
I have a few clients that are over the age of 80. And if I go back, 5 years ago, early 2020, um, they were on their memory was spot on. They could
Yeah,
remember things. We were having these conversations. They would
right,
recall things that I had forgotten.
right.
And here we are, the 3 years afterwards, what what I started to find was, and had to have conversations with their children, was they're
Mm,
not remembering things like they used to. And it
mhm.
and it seemed like dementia was beginning to progress with them.
Yeah.
And so sitting down yesterday and having a conversation regarding one of my clients, um, the son said, it was COVID, right? Because COVID now had them confined to their house. They weren't as active as they normally
Mhm.
were, right? We used
Yeah.
to see them at 3 or 4 Mardi Gras balls every year, and
Mm.
and
Wow.
they just haven't been back. So I think that confinement kind of sped
Yeah.
that up within them as well.
Yeah, definitely.
No.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So what are some of the senior living options that are out there? Because we know that they're not all the same. And I think a part of that is when, myself included, when we hear about some of these different areas and different options, we get them confused. So
Yeah.
let's talk about some of these key terms and provide us clarity on the differences between the senior living options.
Definitely. Yeah, and I can share some of the common misconceptions between
Mm-hmm.
them. And I'll say too, one benefit of clarifying these misconceptions is it's actually really hopeful some of the options that are out there that people don't think are possible for them, either financially or for whatever reason. And I can kind of clarify some of that too to bring some
Okay.
hope. But there's independent living. I'll start with that. Independent living can look different can look like different things. There's retirement communities where they have a big plot of land and they have a bunch of different houses on that land, and people can live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home independently. There's also retirement communities who have condo like apartments where people can live independently. Usually, in an independent living, a few meals a day are provided. Um, and there's a bunch of social activities. So the benefit of independent living is you don't have any maintenance. You probably can pay an extra fee for housekeeping. You have a ton of social opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
lovely dining. People go on trips together in independent living communities all the time. So
Okay.
very lively.
So,
One common, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
independent living, then, I'm in my mid to late 70s. My
Hmm.
significant other is no longer with me.
Hmm.
My children live away. I may want to move into an
Yeah.
independent living because I can still have all the functions of living at home. I just don't have the upkeep. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes. And
Okay.
it's my dad jokes about wanting to move to independent living all the time. He's in his early 70s, and it's a very attractive option. And
Hmm.
your family can come stay with you, and they have private dining where you can have
Okay.
parties. It's some people call it a cruise ship on land. So that's what independent living can be.
Okay.
It's now I could get into some of the confusion of independent living, but I won't spend too much time on it. But there's often a buy-in fee at retirement communities to live in independent living. Are you familiar with that at all?
No. No.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of one in particular in our area where you pay almost a down payment to live there. So you pay,
Hmm.
$300,000 for your apartment to move in. And on top of that, you pay a monthly fee. So maybe you pay $3,500 a month on top of that for a married couple to live there. Now you might think that's insanity. And really, I can't imagine affording that. However, if you're 75 and you do that, you are locked in to a monthly rate. So as your needs increase, if you live till you're 100 and maybe you end up having dementia or you have some physical needs, you're never paying $10,000 to $15,000 a month for that care, which some of them cost that. So you're locked in to that $3,500 a month monthly fee. So as your needs increase. So for some people, for who's younger, that can sometimes financially make sense, that
Hmm.
option. And there are death benefits there, so you
Okay.
can get some of the money back at the end.
Okay. That's
So
good. That's good to know.
yeah. So now that's something to really clarify with those retirement communities.
Hmm.
What is that benefit? Is it for after a certain time of living there, it's no longer valid or whatnot? But I've seen people think they couldn't afford an option like that, and it ends up making financial sense for them.
Okay.
So yeah, that's independent living. Save up, everybody. Yeah, so that's independent living. Assisted living, one misconception is you can actually live independently in an assisted living. You can drive, you can come and go as you please. And some people just move into assisted living so they don't have to keep moving as their needs increase. So,
Okay.
assisted living, you can get help with your activities of daily living, and you usually have 3 meals a day included, and the
So
social
I'm gonna
atmosphere.
I'm gonna stop you here.
Yeah.
You just threw out an acronym
Yes.
where you said activities of daily living, right?
Yes.
So for those who don't know, can you explain what the activities of daily living are?
Yes. Activities of daily living are bathing, dressing, hygiene, feeding, transfers, and I'm forgetting one or two. But it's really the personal care needs that you
Okay.
have. And there's varying levels that you need help with that. So
Okay.
maybe you don't need someone to bathe you. Maybe you just need them nearby in case you fall or you're feeling unsteady.
Okay.
So assisted living communities will assess you on that level that you need.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's assisted living. Now, assisted living, the way they usually in the state of Louisiana and a lot of other states, assisted living, you pay a base rent, a monthly base rent, and say it's $3,500 a month for your apartment. And that includes your 3 meals a day, that includes your utilities, whatnot. As your care needs increase, say you need hands-on assistance with your bathing and your dressing and your hygiene, then they put you at a level 1 for your care level. And that's an extra $600 a month, or that's an
Mm.
extra $300 a month. And they keep adding to your level of care. So that's how they charge there. It gets a little tricky. I warn people against this. I don't think assisted living is necessarily mean to be deceitful,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they'll assess you at, okay, your base rent is $3,500 and you're only a level 1. Mom moved in, it's only $300 a month extra. And then she moves in and they're like, no, she's a level 4. It's going to be an extra $1,500 a month. So I tell people, look at the maximum it could cost you before you move in and plan
Gotcha.
for that.
Gotcha.
So
Now,
that's how I say that.
and then we have memory care.
Yes. Memory care is just assisted living in a secure environment. So
Okay.
they have usually a code to get in, and they encourage the residents most of the time to get into the common space throughout the day. So residents are not alone, so they have more eyes and ears on them.
Yeah.
In assisted living, you can be in your apartment as long as you want.
Now, some facilities then they'll offer that assistant living on one side of the facility, and then as let's say dementia begins to kick in, then they'll move you to the other side of the facility, and they may have the memory care. Is that correct?
Yes, most,
Okay.
at least the greater New Orleans area and where I've lived in other parts of the country, most of them now are constructed with an assisted living half and a memory care half.
Okay.
I would say I've heard, I don't know that this is an accurate statistic, but people throw this out that 90% of the people who live in assisted living have
Mhm.
some form of memory impairment, but
Okay.
they're able to live on the assisted living side because they don't wander or because they're not falling or because they're able to still participate socially. Now, if they wander or they're maybe struggling to relate with the people in the assisted living, they might encourage
And then
them.
move. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We've been through that with my aunt.
Yeah.
She had a tendency for walking out of her
Mm,
room within her assisted living facility
mm.
and wandering around and walking into other people's rooms and
Oh,
no
yeah.
one knowing where she was. And so we eventually wound up moving her over to the memory care facility.
How was that?
Um, Depressing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was for me, it was
Yeah.
depressing going in there. So, um, now she's 87, 88 years old.
Mhm.
So we still try to get up there on a regular basis to see her.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think that you had mentioned something about a residential care home as well then, correct?
Yeah. Residential care homes say I've seen them more popping up in the last 20 years. Um, they are smaller home-like settings. They are in suburban America. Just you wouldn't be able to recognize them from a normal house next door.
Mhm. Mm.
A lot of times they don't even have their signs out front just to blend in.
Okay.
They usually have I've seen some fairly small with 6 residents, and I've seen some with 16. And those are a real gift to our communities. Honestly, they are able to provide a different kind of care because there's fewer residents and it's a home-like setting.
Mhm.
So they're not a great fit for, I would say they do attract people with dementia because the people with dementia tend to need more care.
Okay.
And so the residential care homes are a great fit for them. They
Okay.
aren't great for someone who's 80 years old and really mostly independent, maybe needs help with some bathing or dressing, but socially is totally active and doing whatever. And a larger assisted living is a better fit for that kind of person.
Mhm.
For someone with dementia who's maybe struggling to communicate or needs a lot of attention, a residential care home is a better fit. And they are often a one fee, like all-inclusive fee monthly. So
Okay.
you don't have to
Monthly,
worry
all
about
inclusive.
increasing.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about, oh, are they going to increase as my mom's needs change? It's usually, $6,500 a
Mhm.
month flat.
Wow.
It's a
Well,
lot.
I'll tell you, going through these different types of facilities, I think is important
Mhm.
for understanding the terms, because it's essential for financial planning
Right.
and also as far as legacy planning and what do we want to do to help assist our aging parents,
Yeah.
or significant other, husband, wife, what may you, in the event that something were to happen to them and they're still young enough. So, because it is expensive. You threw out some
Right.
numbers in there, and I'm sitting
Yeah.
there thinking, the average household's not going to be able to afford those.
Right.
So, how do we take care of that? And
Right.
that's where the planning piece comes in.
Mhm.
So, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
we touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna bring this back, right? And so, um, I know my parents are getting older. All right. What
Mhm.
are some talking points that, as a family, my sister, my brother, my mother, my parents, whatever it may be, what are some of the talking points that we should bring up and that we should start having as a family?
Yeah. Now, do you mean income or financially based, just since we've
Yeah.
been talking about some numbers?
Right. So we
Yeah.
know we're hearing those numbers, and
Right.
I gotta imagine, yeah, we're gonna have those conversations regarding income.
Mhm.
But what are some of the other things that we need to discuss?
Right.
In our call, you and I had talked about, we have to have that conversation. We have to
Yeah.
know what resources are
Yeah.
available for
Yeah.
the parents and or the family to be able to ensure that we can afford this.
Mhm.
$3,500 a month, 300,000, to purchase one of these homes. Those are expensive. So for me, when I'm thinking about it, I want to know, do you have the long-term and care insurance, correct? What's your income? Is it pension plans or 401ks or Social Security? So what are some of the other things that we should be asking?
Mhm. Yeah, you just hit on some of the biggest ones. When I interview my clients, and my clients don't, I'm not a financial advisor, so they don't
Hmm.
disclose every detail of their finances, but I'm
Right.
trying to find out what can they afford based on my knowledge of the senior living. And then I recommend they go talk with their financial advisor based on the information I've given them.
Hmm.
However, so I the questions I ask when I'm trying to get an understanding of someone's ability to pay for senior living options is, what's your monthly income, like you said? Do you have any pensions, Social Security, like you said? Anything else that's coming in monthly, recurring revenue that you had from some business?
Hmm.
I know some people own property that's bringing in monthly income. Then I ask, yeah, just about their assets. How much is their
Okay.
home worth? Are they open to selling that? And then a lot of the population I'm working with, they have done an impressive job of saving. I'm working with the 80 to 90-year-olds. So I would say that's probably the biggest finance
Hmm.
questions that I ask them.
Okay.
And then I ask them about long-term care insurance, which
Gotcha.
80 to 90-year-olds, a lot of them did buy into long-term care insurance in the early 2000s, and they have policies that give them around $200 per day per spouse.
Mhm.
So that has really helped them afford mean, my grandparents had a long-term care insurance policy, and they lived in an independent living community at a very nice retirement community from age probably 83 until 90, mid to late 90s. And
Wow.
they were able to afford that because of their long-term care insurance policy.
Mm.
So,
Now,
yeah.
in a previous conversation,
Mhm.
and I've had this come up in conversations with clients, you had mentioned that you want to know, are there any VA benefits out there?
Right. I
So,
forgot that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
what does the VA benefit do?
Yeah, I am not the VA expert. However, I do know some experts,
Okay,
and
so we'll
I
we'll leave we'll leave that one
yeah,
alone. But
yeah, but
but
I've watched some people, some of my clients I've had that I've referred to some VA experts, and they've discovered money they had no idea they had access to, which is
okay,
a remarkable experience to witness. Someone who thinks they're at the end of, their financial ability to pay, and then they suddenly discover, wait, I have these VA benefits. This makes my senior living possible.
hmm and I think that one is a big one.
Yeah.
If the individual was in the or a spouse receives those VA benefits, I
Mhm.
tell people all the time, call them, find out
Right.
what
Right.
what you're eligible for, because you never know. And
Right.
so and
That's the same with, I think a lot of people forget what their long-term care insurance policies
Mhm.
included, and
Right,
adult children have no idea their parents have this, and finding that out means a whole world is possible to them that the children didn't know was
right.
possible.
I guess that the biggest key that I'm taking out of this section is, when we are getting to that point,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that we're aligning our care needs with whatever our financial ability is. So that
Yeah.
financial ability is key.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the planning piece.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we definitely want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned um, that you're not a financial advisor, all right, and that's not that you're more that care specialist, right? You're that aging care specialist, a
Mhm.
senior care, putting them into where they need to go and walking them through that or walking them down that road.
Mhm.
Would you say it's essential for individuals to build that team, right? And have you and have the financial advisor on there. Um, Tell us a little bit about, do you talk about that? Do you push that to get that team together? And how do you see them collaborating together?
Yeah, definitely. Now I can tell people, this is how much your monthly rent would cost. This is how much that
Hmm.
facility costs. This is how, if you stayed at home, this is how much your sitter would cost. And a lot of financial advisors don't know the nitty gritty of the senior care industry that I do. Um, but I give that to my clients and then recommend they go talk with their financial advisors with
Hmm.
some of that more detailed
Okay.
information. And I think it's essential because they're the experts on the money, that they can help you do what you want and make things possible and maneuver things where I wouldn't necessarily be able to assist them on. And I think getting that in place ahead of time
Hmm.
is amazing if you
It
can.
is. And I,
If
I
you
was
can.
after our first conversation, I was on my way home when I left.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there about the experiences that I've seen and that I've been
Mhm.
through. And I was thinking, I'm like, man, it would have been so much easier
Yeah.
to have that consultant, the senior placement specialist to be able to work with and help me. I know
Yep.
things from the financial side,
Mhm.
but from looking at the senior living options, I had no idea the
Right.
terminology and the
Right.
differences between them. And having someone to walk down that road with would have definitely helped out. So,
Right.
you know,
It's also, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why I'm here. I think
Mhm.
one thing people don't know, and this is actually a little senior living hack, Xavier, but assisted living's the larger assisted living communities too. You can kind of negotiate some things financially as well.
I did tell my wife we had that conversation too, and she said, "I
Yeah.
didn't know that." So,
Yes. So it's now, I It's not with every community. It really
Mm-hmm.
depends. The national ones, they'll do what they call monthly specials. And you come back to them and you say, look, I know you're having this monthly special, but we just spent this for mom a month ago thinking this was our situation. Can you lower it to this and we'll
Right.
move in by the end of next month or something like that. It's there's room for conversation. So don't always take their word as, not saying don't believe them, but be willing to have the money conversations with the communities too. Like, we could afford
Okay.
this, we can't afford that. Let's skip the move-in fee. A lot of communities charge a one-time move-in fee. You can say, I can move in if you waive the move-in fee.
Okay.
So that's just something for people to, it's not gonna, maybe it won't work every time, but definitely try it.
Right.
So,
But it's one of those things that you should know when, as the title says, so these are the things that everyone should know about
right,
caring for aging parents. So,
right, definitely.
so if there's one thing that you would like our listeners to take away from the episode, what would that be?
See, the one takeaway is that there are options. There are options for your aging parent, and even some that we didn't discuss today. There's in New Orleans, there's an order of religious sisters who provide night care for the dying for free if you pay for their transportation. The hospice does so much more now than it did 10 to 15 years ago, and that's covered by Medicare. And there's volunteers who do sitting, and there's private pay physical therapists to help your mom maintain her mobility at home if you ran out of the Medicare covered PT. So there's a whole lot of resources and services that are out there that aren't known to the general public. And I think that's why I think there will be an increase in consultants like me over the next few decades, because every family is unique in what they're experiencing and what their needs are, and they do need accompaniment through that to figure out what is available for them specifically. But I think there's a lot of hope for people who think they're at the end of their rope and think they're not eligible for anything. There usually are options. It may not be perfect, which is hard, but there are ways to accompany families and lighten their load and really give people what they want in some capacity.
And you said it. You said there's hope, and at least having hope. That's the bright side of it, because there are options. I think we just need to have those conversations early,
right?
And not be afraid to have them, because all too often I hear people say, "We'll put it off until later. We'll deal with it next year." And so some of the I jotted down a couple as we were talking. I jotted down a couple action steps that I suggest our listeners take. And one, start that conversation early. Have it with your parents. Have it with your advisors. It's never too early to have those conversations.
Right.
Learn the terminology. All right. Because if you don't understand those terminologies like we spoke about earlier, the decisions that we make could potentially be expensive.
Right.
Because now we're under pressure, we're under stress to make those decisions now rather than really doing the research on it. I think, review finances, right? Before we can make those decisions, we have to know what those finances look like. All right. Income, earnings. Do we have long-term care insurance? Do we have those VA benefits? So those are all things that we want to take a look at as well. And then you mentioned this early on. Ask your loved ones, what do they want? All right. It's not what I want or what you want. It's what that individual, the parents or any individual that is in that needs that long-term care assistance. It's what they want. So ask them what they want. And then build your team. You mentioned a little bit about this as well. Building a team is important. All right. Your family's going to be a part of the team, but your care consultants are going to be there. Your financial planners are going to be there. Your healthcare providers are going to be there as well. So begin building that team early on.
Yeah. it's like a phone book of, the different people and what they do.
Right.
If you don't mind, Xavier, I can share just a quick
Yeah.
testimony of a family I worked with. Grandmother, she is in her 90s, and they came to me a few years ago. She has dementia. She's living on her own, and they wanted to keep her at home for as long as possible, but they decided to plan for a crisis. So they said, Shannon, we'd like to move forward with touring 3 assisted livings that you think would be a good fit for us based on, our ability to pay, her preferences, and geography, proximity to us. And so we toured the 3 communities. They selected one. They put a deposit down to be on the wait list. And 2.5 years later, their grandmother is still living at home. Has a sitter there for a good portion of the week. She has a private pay physical therapist who now comes in twice a week to do kind of mobility exercises to help her stay strong. They've moved things in the house. They've had some safety assessments, I believe, by an occupational therapist to kind of try and extend her time at home for as long as possible. But they have that plan for if the time comes, they're ready to go. And I was really impressed by their foresight in that, just looking ahead and having an option and then doing what they could, piecing things together to keep her at home too. So I thought they were a good example to share about, it wasn't a waste for them to go tour these assisted livings because they have an option for if the time comes.
And that's my recap right there.
Yeah.
I mean, plan,
Right.
just do it. You don't, it's
Mhm.
not that you necessarily need it now,
Right.
but you're looking towards the future.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Shannon, share with our listeners, if they have questions, if they want to look you up, tell us how our listeners can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's Avila, Avila, senioradvisors.com, and you can book a consultation. There's also a way just to email me. Under the book a consultation, I do one-to-one appointments, and sometimes I have 6 adult children on a virtual call. So sometimes it's just one person, sometimes it's the older parent as well, sometimes it's 6 adult children. We can kind of include anyone when it's virtual. And there's a form you fill out and you pay to book there. And there's an additional form that you can select where you can fill out more information about your situation so I can get a better idea
Okay.
of your unique needs. And then the goal of those meetings is to have, okay, what's going on? What does the older adult need? What do they want? And let's come up with an order of operations and a delegated task list. So then the family can move forward knowing, okay, we know more than we did an hour ago. We know our next steps. And if they want to schedule ongoing calls, they can. But a lot of clients just schedule 1 or 2 meetings with me and move forward with that. So it doesn't have to be, that they're ongoing with me for 6 months.
Gotcha.
I really actually prefer clients, older adults get harassed by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They get a lot of calls from people, and my goal is that they only get calls from me if they asked for it. So that's how I operate.
Okay.
And work,
And that's
so.
avilasenioradvisor.com, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Senior
Perfect.
Advisors with an S at the end.
Advisors. Gotcha. Well, Shannon, thank you for sitting in with us and having this conversation.
Thank
it's
you.
one that needs to be had, and it's all around planning. We have to start planning early. That way we can protect ourselves from what may potentially happen in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Xavier. I appreciate it.